Now, Iran on Thursday issued a warning to the United States as President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid signed a joint pledge to deny Iran any nuclear arms. The show of unity between the US and its allies prompted Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi to react. Listen in.
و به متحدان اونها در منطقه من بگم که ملت بزرگ ایران هیچ گونه ناامنی و بحران رو در منطقه نمیپذیرد و هر گونه خطای امریکایی ها را و به ایالات متحده امریکا و همپیمانانش در منطقه بگویم هر گونه خطایی در این منطقه با پاسخ سخت و پشیمان کننده‌ای مواجه خواهد شد.
Iran blamed the US and its regional allies for stoking tensions in the region. This comes after the US and Israel signed a joint pledge on Thursday called the Jerusalem US-Israel Strategic Partnership Joint Declaration to never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. Washington and Israel have long expressed concerns about Iran's nuclear capabilities.
Today, you and I also discussed America's commitment to ensuring Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon. This is a vital security interest to both Israel and the United States, and I would add, for the rest of the world as well. I continue to believe that diplomacy is the best way to achieve this outcome, and will continue to work with Israel to counter other threats from Iran throughout the region, including support for terrorism, ballistic missile program that continues, and the proliferation of weapons to terrorists and proxies like Hezbollah.
Words will not stop them, Mr. President. Diplomacy will not stop them. The only thing that will stop Iran is knowing that if they continue to develop their nuclear program, the free world will use force. The only way to stop them is to put a credible military threat on the table.
Iran has maintained that it never had any ambition to make a nuclear bomb and that its nuclear program is solely for peaceful purposes. In 2015, Iran entered a landmark deal with 6 other world powers to curb Iran's nuclear program in exchange for crippling economic sanctions to be lifted. But the deal was torpedoed in 2018 by former President Donald Trump, who pulled the US out of the deal. Now, Biden took office with a promise to restore the deal, but the nuclear talks in Vienna have hit a stalemate. Israel now says it would support a new deal with tougher provisions. Meanwhile, Iran says it will not submit to any further restrictions. Today, a U.S. president will travel to the West Bank to meet Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and then take the first publicly acknowledged direct flight from Israel to Saudi Arabia. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Dr. Hadass Cohen, who is a political commentator from Tel Aviv in Israel. Thank you for being with us. Now, Iran has vowed harsh response for the U.S. and allies for stoking insecurity after Israel and the U.S. signed a pledge yesterday on Iran denying nuclear arms. Now, how do you perceive this threat coming at a time when talks for the 2015 nuclear deal are also stalled?
Well, I think you have here strategic statements that are being made. Clearly, the U.S., I mean, this is Biden's first trip to the Middle East. He's visiting Israel, he's visiting the West Bank, Saudi Arabia. He's talking with Israel about helping the country vis-a-vis Iran's nuclear capability and curtailing it. So, of course, there's something very dramatic needs to be heard also from Iran about that. Now, regarding whether each one, either the U.S. and Israel or one of the two will actually use military force to curb Iran's nuclear capabilities, I highly doubt we're going to see a move like that. And also Iran, would they use force to attack Israel, for instance, knowing that the U.S. would immediately respond afterwards? I highly doubt that as well. So right now we're just saying kind of both, at least the Iranians, let's say, saying, be careful, we're capable of that. And Israel, the Yair Lapid, Israeli Prime Minister, saying, the U.S., please, curb the time until which we will have the negotiations and then set a time for military action against Iran, which Biden did not do yesterday in the joint statements.
Right. Now, the United States has hinted that more Arab nations could take steps to improve ties with Israel. Can we expect an Israel-Saudi normalization deal?
Well, we already have a normalization happening, right? As of today, tomorrow, in this period right now, Israeli airplanes will be able to fly over Saudi Arabia, which was not the case. And this is the idea, I believe, is that if Saudi Arabia, one of the most religious Islamic countries and one of the leaders of the Arab world, particularly the Sunni Arab world, if they will take steps to normalize, to officially normalize relations with Israel, then other countries will follow as well, because it will be easier for them to follow vis-a-vis their own Muslim clergy, their own citizenship, saying, well, look, if Saudi Arabia did it, then, you know, we're not breaking any rules here, we're not being the first ones. So I believe definitely we're going to see more normalization between Israel and other Arab countries, particularly Sunni ones.
Right, and Doctor, also all eyes are on Saudi Arabia, where Biden will travel despite a previous vow to treat the kingdom as a pariah over the 2018 murder of journalist Khashoggi. What will be the focus of the U.S. while in Saudi Arabia?
Well, Biden has midterm elections to face back home this coming fall, and he needs to see that the price of oil will drop below the $5 average that it is right now. Otherwise, he will for sure lose the houses back home. So I believe that one of the main reasons behind this visit and what will be discussed is getting Saudi Arabia to increase its oil production, possibly divert some of the 25% of the oil production that it's currently sending to China, possibly diverting some of that to the United States. So oil is very central to this visit, the discussions over oil. The war on Yemen will also be discussed, but and of course Iran and its nuclear capabilities, which worries all of the Sunni countries here in the region. But definitely this will be discussed, and it's really interesting to put this in the context of Biden saying that Saudi Arabia will pay because it will become a pariah state, and all of a sudden we see him. I mean, it's not so all of a sudden. I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense if you think of what's going on in the United States right now, in the Russian invasion to Ukraine and its effects on oil prices and food shortage around the world. Then all of a sudden he's going there and he's normalizing not just normalizing the American relations with them, but also making them a central player in the Middle East.
Right, Dr. Haras Cohen, thank you very much for your valuable insights there.
Of course.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.